Hi, my name is Adriana, and today I will be reviewing The Goddess and the Machine while painting my nails, and I also inadvertently created a drinking game. So if you are over the age of 21 and partake, drink every time I say the word neutral. As you can tell from the title of this video, I was not super impressed with The Goddess and the Machine, which was a super big disappointment because I loved the idea of the book and I loved the cover art especially. So when I decided I was gonna sit down and review it, even though I was very neutral on it, it was just filming this review was weighing very heavily on me. So I decided instead of doing a regular review where I just sit and talk to you and tell you about my thoughts, I would also paint my nails because it's something I enjoy doing and it gave me motivation to actually do this, make this review. So, you know, if you like this format, maybe I could do this for other books that I'm neutral on, and if you don't, then I will never do this again and I will just keep to painting my own nails. I think I want to do a look inspired by the book covers, so I will put the covers somewhere up in here so you can see it. But obviously I'm going to start with a base coat. I have this Live Laugh Polish one that I like. It's just the smoothing nail primer. And I'm also going to start with just a short synopsis on the book if you haven't read it. I need to open this. So yeah, while I'm applying my base coat, I'll just kind of start with a short little base synopsis of The Goddess and the Machine. But it's basically this gal gets cryogenically frozen with her family to be transported off of Earth onto another planet to start a colony there. So we start off the book with her getting woken up out of her cryogenic sleep and waking up and realizing that she has overslept by 1,000 years.
Wait a minute. Is that blimp accurate?
Yep. It's December 31st, 2999.
My God. 1,000,000 years.
So she was supposed to wake up 100 years later. It's now 1,000 years later. And kind of how she's dealing with this new society of humans 1,000 years after this ship took off. And it's kind of like the inciting incident of the story, and we spend the rest of the story with her and the guy who woke her up, a guy from this society. His name is Zaid, and the book kind of focuses from their two perspectives, and I think that's all I gotta say. Now that the base coat is dry, I'm gonna go in with just kind of a white color base. I'm just using the OPI Alpine Snow, and I think because I want to do the kind of blue, pink, orange gradient on the cover, and I think that'll look best over a white base. So I think this white base is a very good time to discuss our main protagonist, which I think she's most of the reason I feel so meh or neutral about this whole book. I don't know if it's just because this is YA and I'm an adult. It just felt like a very bland, general YA protagonist to me. Spent a lot of time talking about how she's, you know, she's overweight and she's not very pretty, and like even though she's like extremely capable, she just has no self-confidence. And again, that can probably be attributed to the fact that she is supposed to be a teenager, but I just don't think I can do the whole teenager protagonist thing anymore. It's a lot to read you know, from a protagonist's point of view, or from a teenager's point of view, as like a full-grown, realized adult with adult problems. And not to say that she isn't going through it. I mean, she's definitely going through the whole ringer in this book, but I just wasn't into her as a character. And there's some other reasons as to why I felt very neutral on this book, but we'll get into that as we continue on. I mean, I did appreciate, you know, that she was so interested in, you know, like learning and education, and recognized that she had like really good math skills. I think it's important for like young women who are interested in math or are good at math to, you know, be able to read about other people their age who are into math and science and all that stuff. But I don't know. It just, this book wasn't for me. I think it was a good book overall, but just not for me. Okay, so I think that's the last of the white that I'm gonna put on. So I'll let this dry for a little bit. The white isn't quite dry yet, but I'm gonna take this time to put on some liquid peel to protect the rest of my finger while I'm doing the gradient. And I think while I'm doing this, I just kind of want to go, I guess, more into depth as to why I'm so neutral on this book. I don't think it's a bad book by any means. I mean, I rated it 3 stars. Like, it's not great, it's not horrible. I'm probably not going to reread it. If she ends up writing a sequel, I may or may not pick it up depending on how exciting the sequel sounds. I mean, it's not a bad book by any means, but I just didn't find it particularly exciting or different. I'm not a huge sci-fi reader, but I'm a big sci-fi watcher. So I watch, you know, a lot of Star Trek, pretty into Star Wars, watched a lot of Doctor Who growing up, and this just seemed like a very, I guess like Twilight Zone too, I watched a lot of that growing up. This just seemed like a very kind of typical, normal sci-fi story to me, and it didn't really offer me any characters or protagonists that felt any different from anything I had seen before. The plot was pretty like similar to a lot of stuff I had read before, which I'll get into more in the spoiler part of this review. This is still trying to be non-spoiler, but I think if you're not huge into sci-fi, if you hadn't read a lot of sci-fi before and you are, you know, kind of in that younger demographic, I think you could enjoy this book quite a bit. I mean, like I said, I don't think it's a bad book by any means, but I think if you have, you know, really any experience reading or watching sci-fi stories, I think you're going to be a little bored by this book. Yeah, I think that's all I got for that part. And just gonna let this dry so we can get started on the fun gradient part. Now that everything is kind of dry, I'm gonna go ahead and load up this cosmetic sponge with this blue color from Fluid. Secret Project Robot, fitting for a sci-fi novel. This Club Color nondescript pinky purple, and this kind of orangey from Essie. It's Fall for NYC from Essie. So like I said, I just have like a generic cosmetic sponge. I buy these in a huge bag from like Walmart or whatever whenever I'm doing gradient nail art. So once again, I'll put up the book cover so you can see kind of the gradient that I'm talking about. So I'm going to start with the blue on the bottom. See if I can get this on camera or not. And just kind of bring that across the bottom in just a thin little stripe. My nails are pretty short right now, so I don't want to like overload this sponge too much and end up not seeing, you know, that nice gradient blend. While I'm doing this, I want to talk about the only part of the book that I felt had like any color or flavor or anything that wasn't just boring, whiny teenage girl, and that is Zaid. Absolutely, oh my gosh, he is so incredible. I love a good cocky character, just oozing confidence, oozing suave, oozing like, and especially, you know, we got to read from his perspective, and I think it just brings him so much depth as a character as opposed to Andra, who I felt came off pretty one-dimensional throughout most of this book. So I loved Zaid, and his storyline I thought was so cool. All right, here's the moment of truth. Gradients aren't my best. Okay, that kind of came out. Oh, okay. Well, we're gonna let that dry for a little bit, and I'm gonna get this loaded up again to do some more. I'll also take this time to talk about just the rest of the supporting cast in general, who I also thought were just way more fun and way more flushed out. Like Lou Eden, such a neat guy, such a loyal, good friend. His little sister, his, you know, little family, all so cute. And like his little sister is like badass. Like I wish we would have gotten more of her. I thought she was really, really neat. I also really enjoyed all of the female warriors in the schism. I thought they were pretty neat. I mean, fairly generic kind of female warrior sci-fi types. So again, I think that's gonna be kind of my main gripe with this book through everything, is that it's just very, very generic and very not, you know, anything different than any other sci-fi story kind of already out there that you can, you know, watch on TV, or I'm sure read in a lot of other books. Like I said, I don't read a whole lot of sci-fi, and I guess just kind of some closing final thoughts on, you know, stuff I liked in this book. And like I said, it's not that I actively disliked this book. It's just very ambivalent about the book, which I guess is almost more frustrating, because it's like, I don't do hate reviews on my channel. If I really dislike something, I don't really want to talk about it anymore. So I mean, the fact that I was like neutral on this book, it made me not really want to do a review, but it's like I still want to talk about the parts I did like. And like, again, like I said, that's almost more frustrating, because it had potential, could have been there. I think if, you know, Andrea had been a little more intriguing. She's an extremely, extremely capable, you know, young woman with, I think, a lot of interesting things to add to, you know, a story and a conversation about, you know, women in STEM, or, you know, women who are expected to do one thing. I mean, her mom was a major scientist in the company that developed this cryogenic technology. And, you know, she didn't have a huge interest in science, even though she was, you know, adept at it. And it would have been really interesting to have seen more about that, and her feeling like she disappointed her mother because she was never interested in science the way that her mom was. And her mom had all these big expectations for her. And I think that would have been really interesting to kind of delve into a little bit earlier in the novel, and really get, you know, because I think a lot of us have felt that way one way or another about our parental figure in our life, feeling that we're not living up to the legacy that they set out for us, or their expectations of us. I think that's the biggest, again, I'm talking about what I disliked instead of, I'm supposed to be talking about what I did like. I did like the kind of exploration of a culture 1,000 years removed from, I guess not exactly present day, but I think Andra's only from like 100 years from our present day. So, it's still, her culture is recognizable to us. And to see her, go 1,000 years in the future and explore this other culture, and to see how it developed from, some things that are still recognizable to the present day reader, I think was a really cool approach. Seeing the language differences and the way how their language developed, I thought was a really interesting kind of plot device that the author used. So I think, the author did have some cool things to say about the development of a culture, but I just wish there had been more development of the protagonist. And I think that is a good place to kind of end this part of the review. So I think now, in kind of a symbolic way, I'm going to remove my protective peel, and this is going to signify the start of my spoiler review. So let's get that crusty dusty stuff off of there, and I will start talking spoilers. So this next point isn't super spoilery, but you never know what people are going to consider a spoiler, so I just wanted to wait to talk about it until we were in more appropriate company and people who care about spoilers left the video. But the company of LCA, the one that Andra's mom worked for, there was some comment in there about how they had a monopoly on like basically everything. And she was talking about how they had a monopoly on all this different technology. And then she lists off, and the EPA, like they had taken over the government agency of the EPA and now ran like their own regulatory regulations on environmental protection. And this really has nothing to do with the book, but it just made me think about, I don't know if anybody watching this kept up with the Boeing 737 incidences, and how the Boeing was basically doing its own audits for the FFA. And so it just made me think about that. Like LCA basically had a monopoly on the EPA, and Boeing basically had its own monopoly on the FAA and did their own internal audits. And that was part of the problem of why the 737 MAX 8s didn't work. So that was funny. All right, I got my cuticles as cleaned up as I care to do right now. So I think next thing I'm gonna do is to try to do some of like the lines across the gradient like you see on the book cover. So with that, I'm going to dig my white polish back out and just use a little striping brush. This one's just uber chic. I've had it for a couple years now, but just this little striper brush, and make some lines. And with this part of the manicure, I want to talk about the plot, because I think, I don't know, this might be presumptuous of me to say, but I think the author was going for a very twisty, unexpected plot. But like I said, I saw every single one of them like coming. Like within the first chapter, I was like, she's still on Earth. And like, once she met Rashimi, I think that's how you say it, the second goddess, the AI, I was like, she's also an AI, isn't she? And then, once they start looking for the old cryogenic lab, and I was like, yep, they never left Earth. They're still there waiting for her to make the Earth better instead of actually going to a different planet. So it was a very kind of predictable book to me. And that's why I say if you haven't read a lot of sci-fi or watched a lot of sci-fi, I think, you know, you would really enjoy it. But I just didn't really see anything different or special about it. My battery died before I got the chance to kind of show you the final product and put on my top coat, but I just put on a glossy top coat from Cirque Colors. So here's kind of the final product. They're a little bit chipped because, in full transparency, it's been a couple days since I filmed this, but you can kind of see the gradient and the lines I was going for. If you're actually going to try to recreate this look, I'd suggest going for a yellow polish for the lines as opposed to the white. I think it would blend a little bit better and look a little bit closer. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this format. If you did, let me know. If not, let me know. And I will catch you guys next time.